الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين واللعن على أعدائهم أجمعين من عداوتهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد فقد قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم يا علي ما عرف الله إلا أنا وأنت وما عرفني إلا الله وأنت وما عرف الله إلا الله وأنا لو أن الغياض أقلام والبحر مداد والجن حساب والإنس كتاب ما قدروا على إحصاء فزال علي بن أبي طالب. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم يا علي أنت أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين يا علي أنت سيد الوصيين ووارث علم النبيين وخير الصادقين وأفضل السابقين يا علي أنت زوج سيدة نساء العالمين وخليفة خير المرسلين يا علي أنت مولى المؤمنين يا علي أنت الحجة بعد على خلقك أجمعين استوجب الجنة من تولاك واستحق النار من آداك. صلوات محمد وعلى I finished on a point yesterday and I'm going to pick up that point and then carry on in this lecture. For those of you who may well have forgotten where I finished off yesterday, I talked about the event of Khandaq. The word Khandaq means trench. It's called the Battle of the Trench. And in the Quran it's called the Battle of Ahzab. And the Quran has a chapter on the Battle of Khandaq. Ahzab. It's the plural of Hizb, meaning many parties had been brought together to fight Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Medina. I mentioned two hadiths from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One, when Mawla Ali was going towards the battlefield, he said, "Barzal iman kullu ila shirk kullih." That the whole of faith is going to challenge the whole of polytheism, shirk. And then at the end of the battle, I finished on this point, is that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam said, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, said, ضربة علي يوم الخندق أفضل من إبادة الثقلين. And I said this hadith, for those who have difficulties in understanding the Fazail of Ali, this is one hadith which causes them to cause problems in their mind. How can this be? That the zarb of Ali on the day of Khandaq is greater in weight than all heaven and earth combined. The thawab of Ali is more. If you put it onto the balance, you know what balance is, where you weigh things, a scale. You put it on the scale and put that one dharb of Ali on the scale, and then you put every jinn wa ins wa mursal on this other scale, the scale of Ali will be heavier.
MashaAllah.
MashaAllah.
Let me now just go into some of the details of the event of Khandaq. I told you yesterday that Amr ibn Abd Amri went over the trench And then he started to shout. And it says in the books that he shouted to the Muslims so much, his voice became hoarse. He says, is there anybody amongst you Muslims who's prepared to go to heaven and send me to hell? So whoever wins, and when he's done this, he then cuts the horse's legs. When he's in the front of the Muslims, he then cuts the horse's legs. What's the purpose of that? The purpose of this is to show the Muslims that this man, he's not going to run away like we do. This man, Amr ibn Abd Amri, is not going to run away like we do. So he is going to stay whatever the consequences. Either he dies or we die. So amongst the Muslims, is there anybody who's prepared to take up the challenge of Amr ibn Abd Wad? Everybody is silent like you are at the moment. Everybody was silent. And they were so silent, the Quran says they were silent like a bird had sat on their heads. Absolutely not moving at all. They didn't even want to wink or blink, just in case Rasulullah thought that maybe he's offering to fight Amr ibn Abd Wad. Now, they are absolutely silent, and even their heads are lowered just in case Rasulullah looks in their eyes and says maybe he is ready to fight. But no. One of the amazing things of history is that people claim that, I'm going to mention the name, they say that Umar ibn Khattab was very, very brave. He was very brave. And I've read this in some of the Sunni books. It says that Rasulullah actually prayed, "Oh Allah, make Umar ibn Khattab a Muslim." And when he became a Muslim, and inshallah, maybe if I have time during the next few days, I will tell how brave he was. And Rasulullah prayed for this man to become a Muslim in Makkah. And believe you me, what happened after he became a Muslim to Rasulullah and Rasulullah family is that the boycott happened. Within a few months, the boycott of Bani Hashim. And if those of you who are interested in the history of Islam, the boycott of Bani Hashim is an event which is marked by everybody. Sunni and Shia have written upon this event. There was nobody prepared to even break the boycott of Muslims, and he was one of them, who was a Muslim at the time. He did not go once to see how Rasulullah was. This is the bravery of this man. And I'm not saying this because I'm a Shia. This is mentioned in Sunni books as well, what I just said. So in this event, even this man is silent. He then speaks. I said this yesterday. He speaks. And do you know what he says? When there's a fight, and this happens in Pakistan, happened during the wars in Pakistan, we had some ladies who sang military songs to promote the morale of the army. This happens. It happens here in the Second World War. There was a singer who promoted the morale of the army. This man, Umar ibn Khattab, does the opposite. Instead of promoting the morale of the Muslims to fight, he actually makes sure that nobody goes to fight him. I said this yesterday. He said that I was with this man, Amr ibn Abd Amri, in a journey to Syria, and attacked us 100 thieves. This one man, Amr ibn Abd Amri, he attacked them and they all ran away and killed many of them. So he is called in history Al-Faris al-Yalya, the swordsman of Yal. This event happened in Yalya, just somewhere near Syria. And just imagine the morale of the Muslim army. Hearing that this man is challenging the Muslims, and this man, Umar ibn Khattab, has not sort of made the morale of the Muslims higher, he has depressed the morale even further. That to make sure nobody goes and fights him. And every time Rasulullah said, is there anybody amongst you. And Rasulullah says this, I will guarantee you heaven. Rasulullah is saying, whoever goes and fights him, Rasulullah, will guarantee you heaven. Is there anybody interested in going to heaven amongst the companions? Absolute silence. Every time Mawla Ali said, Ana ya Rasulullah, I am here ya Rasulullah. Rasulullah, I said this yesterday, puts on the armor, puts on the clothing, and puts on, there is a amama of Rasulullah, which is called sahab. And this is the same amama which was put on Mawla Ali Akhumegadir. This is the same amama, the sahab. That's the name of the imam. Rasulullah have different colored amamas, and each amama had a different name. But this amama is the same amama which was put on Mawla Ali Akhumegadir. It's called the coronation amama. Then Rasulullah does a dua. He says, Ya Allah, 2 battles have happened before Khandaq. 2 battles. One is Badr and one is Uhud. Rasulullah says, Ya Allah, I lost Ubaidah ibn Haris, who was my cousin in Badr. Ubaidah ibn Haris, I lost in Badr. He was my cousin. Haris was the brother of Hazrat Abdullah. He was my cousin. And in Uhud, I lost my uncle Hamza. 2 battles. This is the 3rd major event. He says, Allah, if Ali does not come back alive from this battle, these are the words, there will be nobody who will do your worship. Allah, if Ali does not come alive back from this battle, there will be nobody who will worship you. And then Mawla Ali goes. The battle itself, in some books I've read, lasted for 2 hours. Lasted for 2 hours. Mawla Ali was fighting with Amr ibn Abd Amri for 2 hours. One of the things that historians have written, that Mawla Ali went round Amr ibn Abd Amri. He did it. He went round him. People asked Mawla, why did you go round Amr ibn Abd Amri? Listen to the answer which Mawla Ali gives. This is a tactic of war, a tactic of fighting. Mawla Ali says, when I was in front of Amr ibn Abd Amri, I felt the ground was soft. The ground was soft. So I went round him, making sure that the ground was firm at one location. Because when I was going to strike, I wanted my feet to be planted on the ground, and that the strike which I do actually has the impact that I want. Mawla Ali was looking for the right piece of land where he could stand. And this is mentioned in the books of Tariq, how Mawla Ali fought. 2 hours. And then when Amr ibn Abd Amri, he does a strike on Mawla Ali. This is again mentioned in Shia and Sunni books. Is that, first of all, let me just explain the physique of Amr ibn Abd Amri. He was 60 inches chest. 60 inches. I'm 42 maybe, 44 maximum if I get a big coat. But 60 inches. Do you know anybody who's 60-inch chest? No. I mean, the biggest I think I've seen maybe in a cell was 54 inch, and nobody was buying that. It was on sale. Because there's nobody at 54 inches of chest. He is 60 inches. And his height, 6-7 foot. Mawla Ali fights him. And now you can understand why people were so scared to fight this man. 60-inch blow. Mawla Ali fights him, and then Amr ibn Abd Amri, he then does a strike on Mawla Ali. Mawla Ali protects himself with the shield. Protects himself with the shield. Despite the shield is cut. Mullah Ali's shield is cut. And the sword goes through the shield and onto the head. And on the head you have the amama. And underneath the amama is a khol, is a helmet. It goes through the amama and goes through the khol, the helmet, and cuts the head of Mullah Ali. Blood is now coming down the face of Mullah Ali. When Mullah Ali just bends a bit, he then strikes Mullah Ali and cuts the legs of Amr ibn Wudi Amri. He falls. He falls. Now, Mullah Ali is ready to cut the head off Amr ibn Wudi Amri. But what he does, he then does something which made Mullah Ali step away. Just imagine, the Muslim army, the Sahabis are watching, and they see that now is the final strike. He's ready to be killed, and Mullah Ali gets up and walks away. Wow. This enemy of God, enemy of Rasulullah, Rasulullah has said he is a dog, and Mullah Ali just gets up and walks away. Mullah Ali calms down, because Mullah Ali was angry with the actions of what he did. That was something which was directed to Mullah Ali, which made Mullah Ali angry. Because of that anger, Mullah Ali did not want to kill him during that anger. Why? It's because Mullah Ali wanted to do everything in the name of Allah and Allah only. He walked away. He then comes back for the final blow. He cuts off the head of Amr ibn Wudi Amri. He gets the head and then walks towards the khayma, the tent of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The following again is mentioned in Shia and Sunni books. The way that Mullah Ali walks towards the tent, just imagine, you killed the biggest warrior of the kuffar. Mullah Ali is walking with a slight pride. You know when somebody has done something great and he walks, Mullah Ali is walking with this pride. The companions look at this way of walking. They didn't object. Allahu Akbar. It's the mentality of these people. If Mullah Ali is walking like this, what is your problem? He's killed your enemy. They say, Ya Rasulullah, look how Ali is walking. Look how Ali is walking. They didn't say, Ya Rasulullah, congratulations, we have killed the biggest enemy of Islam. No. They said, Ya Rasulullah, look how he is walking. Look what Ali has done, and look at the objection. Rasulullah says, in a battlefield, you are allowed to do that. Wow. Rasulullah gave them the answer. In a battlefield, you are allowed to do that. You can walk with this pride. And you actually see this in Karbala as well. Some of the companions of Mullah Ali, Imam Hussain, they walked like that. Ali Akbar, they walked like that. Hazrat Abbas, that is allowed. And Rasulullah made the precedence that in the battlefield, that shut them up, the companions. Umar ibn Khattab came back. He's everywhere, you know, putting his dirty finger in things that have nothing to do with him. He says, Ya Ali, when you killed him, his sword was so expensive. Why didn't you take the sword? His zirra, meaning the body armor, is so expensive. Imagine a 60 inches chest, and all the body armor he's got, and the helmet he's got, they're worth many hundreds of pounds in our price. Many, because it's made of chainmail, and it's got metals on it, and a warrior like him is worth many thousands of pounds. He says, in today's money, he said, why didn't you take his body armor. Mawla said no. Because it is not appropriate for one warrior to take the clothing of another warrior. It's not appropriate. I didn't want to leave him sort of naked. This is this man who claims to know Mawla Ali. Who claims to know Mawla Ali? In the hadith which I read, La arrafuka illallah wa ana. Nobody knows you, Mawla Ali, apart from Allah and me. So when we see the Fazail of Ali, you listen and I speak. I speak and you listen. But believe you me, there have been times in history. I'm going to relate another Fazail of Ali and then take a few minutes on telling you some of the events of history. What happened to the Fazail of Ali. This event happened towards the end of the life of Mawla Ali. Sasa ibn Sohan, you may have heard the name. Sasa ibn Sohan. He asks a question to Mawla Ali. And some ulama have said this was actually asked when Mawla Ali was injured and was about to die within a few days, after Abdurrahman ibn Muljam Muradi had done the strike on the holy head of Imam Ali. Sasa ibn Sohan says, Mawla, just imagine the question and just imagine Mawla Ali. Mawla Ali is injured. He has been injured with a sword which has been dipped in poison. Sasa ibn Sohan says, who is the most superior? Adam or you? Sasa ibn Sohan is one of the great companions of Mawla Ali of Kufa. He says, Mawla, tell me, what a time to asking a question. Mawla Ali says, it is not appropriate to praise oneself. But when Allah has given you a ni'mat, fatahaddis, then talk about it. He says that Adam, who is superior, me or Adam? Let me tell you, I am more superior than Adam. Okay, how? For Adam was told not to eat in heaven. And he ate in heaven. He did tarki awla. He was told, according to this tradition, not to eat the wheat. Not to eat the wheat. Me, Ali, I have never ate wheat in my life. I've spent the whole of my life on barley. I have spent the whole of my life on jow ki roti. I have not eaten wheat. Ya Ali, tell me, who is more superior? You or Hazrat Nuh alayhi salam? Noah. Mawla Ali says, you ask this question, who is superior, Noah or me? I am more superior. How? Is that despite 950 years of tabligh, what did he do? He cursed his own nation to destruction. And then what happened? The flood came. I spent more pain in the 25 years after Rasulullah and I never cursed the Ummah. I am more superior. Then Sasa ibn Sohan says, Oh Mawla, tell me, who is more superior? You or Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam? Sasa, you're asking who is superior? Me or Ibrahim? I am more superior. Why? It's because when Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam asked Allah, Oh Allah, how do you bring the dead to life? How do you bring the dead to life? And Allah says, Oh Ibrahim, do you not believe? Yes, Allah, I believe, but for itmi'anan qalbi, for the satisfaction of my heart, I want to see how you bring the dead to life. The story is, most of you heard, but quickly for those who haven't, Hazrat Ibrahim was told to cut 4 different birds, make mince meat out of them, put them on 4 different mountain tops and then call them. Then you'll find that the meat from each part of the bird joining up, and when it reaches you, there are complete birds. This is how I bring the dead to life. Oh, Sasa ibn Suhan, regarding myself, لو كشف الغطاء ما ازددت يقينا. If all the hijabs were removed from me and Allah, it would not increase my faith. That's the difference between me and Ibrahim alayhi salam. Mawla, who is more superior? You or Hazrat Musa alayhi salam? Sasa, I am more superior than even Musa alayhi salam. How? Mawla says that the habit, the fear which other people have of Musa alayhi salam, it is so much, it has been remembered even today. And the Quran says this as well. Is that he killed somebody in Egypt. Musa alayhi salam. And what did he do? He ran away. Musa alayhi salam killed somebody and then ran away. Went to Palestine. And when he was in Palestine, Allah then says to Musa, اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى. O Musa, go to Pharaoh. He is now taghi. He is now a transgressor. Go to him. Hazrat Musa alayhi salam says, Oh Allah, send me my brother with me. My brother Harun, Akhi. But when it came to me, I was given Surah Barat to take to Makkah. And I had killed many people, the relatives of Makkah. I did not ask for anybody to help me. I did not ask anybody to help me. And when I went to Makkah, I read, you are not allowed to do Hajj. You are not allowed to do Hajj if you are mushrik. And everybody was looking at me. I am more superior. Finally, Sasa ibn Suhan asks Mawla Ali, Oh Mawla, tell me, who's more superior? You or Hazrat Isa alayhi salam? Mawla says, Sasa, alaykum assalam wa rahmatullah. Mawla, who is more superior? Hazrat Isa alayhi salam or you? Sasa, I am more superior than Isa alayhi salam. How? Maryam was in Baitul Maqdis. She was told to leave Baitul Maqdis because of who? Jesus. She was awaiting Jesus' birth, and Allah told her that you cannot bear the child in Baitul Maqdis. She was told to leave. Why? Because of Hazrat Isa alayhi salam. My mother was not in the Kaaba. She had me in her womb. And she was told to come into the Kaaba. She was told to come into the Kaaba. And she gave birth to me in the Kaaba. I am more superior. Sasa ibn Suhan, he is a great companion. He knew the Fazail of Ali. Sometimes hearing the Fazail of somebody from their own mouth, it has its own taste. It has its own taste. You listen to the Fazail of Ali at every majlis, at every opportunity. Why shouldn't you? When Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, sometimes hadiths are mentioned so often, they lose their impact. But when you think about what Rasulullah, who is the one does not speak except it is a revelation, says, زَيِّنُوا مَجَالِسَكُمْ بِذِكْرِ عَلِيِّ بْنِ أَبِي طَالِبٍ. ذِكْرَهُ ذِكْرِي ذِكْرِي ذِكْرُ. For mentioning the Fazail of Ali is mentioning the Fazail of Rasulullah. Mentioning the Fazail of Rasulullah is like mentioning the Fazail of Allah. Mentioning the Fazail of Allah is ibadat. Yani, mentioning the Fazail of Ali is one of the greatest worships that we know. One of the great. And this hadith has been mentioned by Sunni sources as well. Sunni and Shia have mentioned this. And I've even heard Sunnis actually mention this hadith of Zayyinu Majaliskum bi dhikri Ali ibn Abi Talib. So when we look at the Fazail, most of you think that the history of Islam is a simple history. We had all the Fazails come through, written in books, and then they reached us. They have reached us. That is accepted. But for those of you who do not know the history of how the Fazail of Ali came to us, you would have a different opinion of Fazail. And your understanding of Fazail will fill you with Iman. It should fill you with Iman, with faith, with love of Ali and Ahlul Bayt, if you knew the channels that these Fazail had to come through. I will, inshallah, tomorrow continue on what I'm about to start now, because this needs a good 35 to 40 minutes to explain. And I will start it today and finish it tomorrow or maybe the following day, because this is a big chapter in the history of Fazail Ali. Wow. Fazail Ali are mentions on our mimbar, but the masa'ib which they come with have not been mentioned. We mentioned 2 or 3 different masa'ibs of Fazail Ali. One is Misam Tammar. Misam Tammar is the masa'ib of Fazail. Ajib. He is a masa'ib himself, but he is mentioning the Fazail. It is the masa'ib of the Fazail. Kambar. He is the masa'ib of the Fazail. You've not heard this word before. Kya baat? Masa'ib ke Fazail. Masa'ib ke Fazail. Yani, Fazail mein masa'ib. Fazail hai masa'ib. Yeah, those people who gave their lives to protect and honor the Fazail of Ali, they gave their lives. What have you given? And I ask each and every one of you, what have you given to protect the Fazail of Ali? You may well have heard people talking against the Fazail of Ali. What have you done as individuals? Each one of you is asked this question. What have you done to protect the Fazail of Ali? Have you done anything like Misam Tammar? No. Misam Tammar, he is honored. He is so honored that Mawla Ali, his secrets lie with Misam Tammar. Misam Tammar is the holder of the secrets of Ali. There's a film being shown, Mukhtar Nama. If you watch Mukhtar Nama very attentively, Mukhtar does things that even his own companions, where does he get this knowledge from? How does he know that this is going to happen? How does he know that Lashkar is going to fail or going to be successful? How did he know that Sulman ibn Sadr Khazai is going to fail in his rising against the Yazid army? How did he know? How did he know? I'm asking you a question. How did he know? Does anyone know the question, answer to the question? Misam Tammar told him. Misam Tammar. They spent time in prison, in Ibn Ziyad's prison. And Misam Tammar gave him the whole of events after Karbala. What's going to happen? Misam Tammar even told Mukhtar, who's going to kill you? At the time it was Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad who had the power? No. It was going to be the Ibn Zubayris who were going to kill him. And he knew that. He knew the secrets of the Qiyam himself. This is an amazing position to be. Mukhtar. Mukhtar knew his role. He knew where he was going to succeed and where he was going to fail. He knew that he was going to die after he killed all the killers of Imam Hussain. This is something which had been passed down to Misam Tammar from Mawla Ali, and from Misam Tammar to Mukhtar ke Saqafi. I said I'm going to start a topic now which will take some time to explain. If we look at the early history of Islam, and I'll talk about some of the issues further on the of the Shahadat of Rasulullah and Imam Hassan al-Islam, is that when this event happened, the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I'm not going to talk about what happened immediately, but what the government did. What the government did. Who's the government? Abu Bakr and his fellow companion, Umar ibn Khattab. And this again is not something that Shias have written, it is in their most authentic books. They banned the narration of hadith. If you ban narration of hadith, you ban this word, Sami'tu Rasulullah. I heard Rasulullah say this. Or Qala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is now banned. You cannot say that I heard Rasulullah say this. When this is official policy, what happens? No Fazail of anybody is mentioned. The first Khalifa did this, the second Khalifa following the first, and the third following the two. This was the official policy. That for 25 years, no Fazail of Rasulullah, even Rasulullah, no Fazail of Rasulullah were mentioned. No Fazail of Ahlul Bayt were mentioned. Just imagine, 25 years, nothing is mentioned of Ahlul Bayt. Nothing. After, do you know how many 25 years? A child is born, he becomes older, grows up, becomes a young man, gets education, is now in employment. That's what 25 years are. One generation. One generation, they never ever heard this word. Qala Rasulullah. Rasulullah said this. Rasulullah said this. Nobody ever heard this. The natural consequence of this, because the enemies of Rasulullah and the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt are now in power. The next event, when Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan takes over the authority of the Muslims, he does not just put a ban on this, he then does two things. Muawiyah does two things. He opens the gates of fabricated hadith. What does he do? He opens the gates of fabricated hadith, meaning that he then creates hadith in the name of Rasulullah, saying Abu Bakr was like this, Abu Bakr was like this, Umar was like this, Umar was like this. So you have this factory of all the fabricated hadith of the different companions. When he had finished Usman, he said, now let me say something, or get people to say something about myself, meaning Muawiyah. Just imagine, the source of Islam today, who is he? Abu Hurairah. Who is he? Abu Hurairah. Abu Hurairah is the source of Islam. My God. Abu Hurairah is the source of Islam, who is self a Jew, and then taught by a Jew, and only accepted Islam maybe 2.5 years before Rasulullah's passing away. He is now the most authentic source for Islam. This is the tragedy of Islam. There are periods where the Fazail of Ali became a political weapon. I will talk about this political weapon tomorrow. How is it that some of these same people who hated Ali are now using it as a political weapon? It became a political weapon. So two things happen in the I'm finishing now. Two things happen in the time of Muawiyah. He made so many hadiths in favor of certain companions, and then he did something else. He started cursing Ali and Uladi Ali. not just privately, on the mimbar of Rasulullah. Can you imagine in Medina, on the mimbar of Rasulullah, people like Marwan are now cursing Mawla Ali. They're cursing Imam Hassan and Imam Hussain. This is the tragedy of Islam. And this continues. It continues to this final point, and I'll pick up from this point and then I'll continue. That people like Hajjaj bin Yusuf, he says that the bread, listen to this, the bread in which the blood of a Shia tastes better. The blood of a Shia in bread tastes better when it is Shia blood. And when we look at how Imam Ali al-Islam treated the enemies when he left Amr ibn Wadi Amri with his clothes on. But what we find, that had the enemies of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, if they had any decency after the killing of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, they could have at least left the clothing. We're not talking about the zirah and the armor, we're talking about the clothing. They even robbed the clothing of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. If that was not enough, after they had robbed Imam Hussain alayhi salam of his clothing, then they had 10 horses trample of the bodies of the Shahadat of Karbala. Not all the Shahadat were trampled upon. Those in the army of Yazid who had relatives in Imam Hussein's army, they were taken away. But Imam Hussain alayhi salam had no guarantor in the army of Yazid. For his body was trampled so bad, that when Imam Zain al-Abidin on the 12th of Muharram comes through the ijaz of Imamat, through the miracle of Imamat, from the dungeons of Kufa, and comes to Karbala to bury the dead of Karbala, to bury the martyrs of Karbala. One thing which is painful to listen to, when Imam Zain al-Abidin is coming towards Karbala, the tribe of Bani Asad, they see that a man is coming. So they were preparing to bury the martyrs of Karbala, the tribe of Bani Asad. Bani Asad had been given this responsibility by Imam Hussain, that after we have been martyred, our bodies will lie in Karbala. The bodies will be covered with blood, will be covered with dust, will be covered with the sands of Karbala. But when they have gone, come into Karbala, at least bury our bodies. They came out and they seen a man coming. They stopped. They didn't know who he was. They asked, "Who are you? And if you are from the government, we will just walk away." But Imam said, "What are you about to do?" They say that we are about to bury the Shuhada of Karbala, the martyrs of Ashura. Imam then goes to his father, Imam Hussain Islam. He sees Imam in front of him. And what Imam says, he says to Bani Asad, "Bring me a straw mat. Bring me a straw mat." Bani Asad said, "Why?" He said, "My father is lying in pieces. He is lying with broken ribs. His body is broken. And the only way of me carrying him is upon this mat." And by this, Imam Zain al-Abidin lifts his father and puts Imam Hussain alayhi salam in the grave like this. And then he puts Ali Asghar on the chest of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. And then he puts Ali Akbar at the foot of Imam Hussain, a small grave. And you have gone to Karbala. You have seen how the grave is. The grave of Imam Hussain, and then you have a small grave of Ali Akbar. Ali Akbar, He has also been trampled by the horses. His body is broken. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون.